in terms of the SMRT project, Secretary Rahn, you've heard from me many times, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it is Charles County's #1 transportation priority. The congestion that you've heard about, the overwhelming amount of vehicles on the road and the inability of the roads to keep up with that. We can add another lane to Maryland 5, and that'll get us along for a little while, but eventually that will choke. And so high-capacity transit is the best means of expenditure to get folks not only from Charles County but St. Mary's and regions beyond to their places of business, and also create a reverse commute. The economic development isn't just in Charles County. Prince George's County is well on board with this. You've received letters from them as well as us saying that we ask to reconsider the determination of bus rapid transit over light rail. We do firmly believe that the study clearly showed that light rail was the only mode that got the job done in the end. And for anybody who doesn't know, the study essentially showed that during peak hours, when the system opens, that you'd have to run 3 bus platoons of the bus rapid transit system due to its limited capacity just to keep up with the demand, versus a light rail train could keep up with the demand. The one thing that I want to regroup everybody on is what we're asking for at this point is project planning. We're not asking for the $1.5 billion project. We're asking for roughly $27 million spread over 3 to 4 years. So that's, let's say, $9 million a year to do project planning, and that would take 3 to 4 years, enough through the current governor's administration and potentially his next. So we wouldn't be at the table until the end of that administration asking for any further funding. And the show of support that would give Southern Marylanders and Charles County citizens would be immense. And the support that he may get from that effort may be immense. So I urge you to rethink the mode. And one way to do that would be to say, let's put the project in project planning and we'll reevaluate the mode. We'll look a little deeper, we'll look at all the options, and we can move that thing forward. And that would really gain a lot of support, I believe. As I said, Prince George's County has said the same thing as Charles in terms of what I've just mentioned. But one of the key things is that the population in Prince George's County is significantly greater than us, is well behind this project as well. So while there's 160,000 people in Charles County, there's 900,000 in Prince George's. So the combined total of those two in the commuting population would have an overwhelming support and really go to the ridership. A couple of things, I think Senator Middleton may have mentioned it. There were some comments made toward the end of the project basically saying that we couldn't move forward with the project, or the state couldn't move forward with the project because FTA wouldn't fund project planning. Well, FTA hasn't funded project planning since they got rid of the alternatives analysis process 5-6 years ago. So obviously that's a no-brainer. Project planning is a state responsibility. It's a state function. Charles County has had funding in our budget to help support a portion of the NEPA process, and we would love to engage you on that process. And in terms of determining a funding source at this level, that's what the NEPA process is for. It's always been my experience. There's no need to determine a funding source before you know exactly what it's going to cost. I know we have good estimates, but I think it's critical to get this project in project planning, sort out the funding sources as the Purple Line did, as in numerous transit projects across the country have done. So I believe it's premature to recommend that that's the case. And then finally, on the right-of-way, we've worked diligently with Greg and his group at State Highway Administration on preserving the right-of-way for this project. The Maryland 5 Corridor project has been underway for many years. Greg's team has been gracious enough to hold on their project until the SMRT project is done. We've now identified the right-of-way. We know exactly how wide it's going to be, where it's going to go. And we would greatly, greatly encourage the state, no matter what, to preserve that right-of-way so that we can ensure that we don't preclude high-capacity transit from ever being an option. Because if anybody's gone up and down the 5 corridor through Clinton, there's not a lot of places to go. Essentially, the highway corridor is it. So we would encourage you, as the expansion of 5 goes on, add the 3rd lane as an interim step, but preserve the right-of-way for that high-capacity corridor for the transit system. And finally, I would say that we certainly are encouraged in working with your team thus far. The team that was put together by MTA for this project, the consultant team, was fantastic. They did a great job. They were thorough. the service that we got for them for that study, for that piece of the study, was fantastic. We just asked that we keep it going. So we're looking for that $27 million investment over the next CTP term, and let's take this to the next level. We're not asking for the big ask yet. And so let's try to keep that conversation going. Let's get the project funded in the next CTP.
Okay. So, Jason, thank you. And as you had mentioned, we've discussed this a couple of times. The issue of spending $27 to $30 million for a NEPA process when we have no idea how we're going to pay for something is actually something that we ourselves have changed in a number of areas, starting with the study looking at a new crossing for the Bay Bridge, in which we have put $5 million to determine where it should go and how we're going to pay for it. So the idea that says, well, you don't have to know how you're going to pay for something before you start spending money on planning it, I just believe, and that's the same conversation I know we had up in my office, which is that doesn't make sense to me that we're going to spend that amount of money to come up with a plan for something when we have no idea how we're going to pay for it. And so it's my belief, before we're going to spend $27 to $30 million, I have to tell you, that's a lot of money. Before we spend that, we ought to have some idea how we're going to pay for it. And until we can get past that, I don't see that money being expended.
I'll just reiterate that I think the NEPA process can sort that out. But I understand your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. I think it was a good conversation. I just would like to kind of end on that with the idea that that this not just be another conversation, and that, like Commissioner Stewart was saying, that she brought up something that she brought up last year, and we're still not there yet. We can do better than that as a government. And so what I would really encourage is that we sit down, we'll work together with the delegation, and we, with our staff, clearly Jason knows exactly what he's talking about. He knows what our needs are. He knows the way you operate. He's been there. And I think that at the very least, that we can come to you with something we want. And then I think you could go a long way by providing some good faith to provide something. Because it gets back to what Senator Middleton was saying before. When you go through this document, I think it would be we don't want to find out that Charles County is on the short end of this and that other jurisdictions are getting things. And so I think that if we're willing to do the work, and we are, to come to you, we would like to be able to have something back to say we can do this, and we will do this, and this will be the time frame, whatever that is. I'm not in a position to say what that is yet, but I think that is something that we ought to be shooting for, and so that we just don't have these nice conversations every year. And it's useful in terms of knowing what's going on. And I certainly understand your position. You've got 24 jurisdictions that you have to obviously be responsible to, and we get that. But we also obviously clearly want some things for our citizens. It's just about fairness. It's an issue of fairness, and that's what we're looking for.
And certainly I understand it is your job to represent your citizens and to make requests on their behalf. Totally, I get it. That is your job. So
it's part of our job. Our other part of our job is to look out for and to be good neighbors in the state of Maryland. So we are, and we understand that. We talked about 301. We talked about 210. So all we're asking, I think, is we'll come back and we can talk about perhaps something that's very concrete and tangible, so that maybe by this time next year we're really talking about what we've accomplished in the year that we've been together.
Mr. President, if you let me make one comment,
of course,
which is that the idea that Charles County is being shorted, I would like to add that we are spending $800 million on a bridge within Charles County, which is a substantial investment, right? So
those are two
That's a different amount of money.
Mr. Secretary.
Entirely
and still a decision
Right.
to put the money there.
Okay. All right. With that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you. Anyway, I appreciate. Thank you very much for being here. I want to thank everybody else for being here this evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.